This isn't your typical motorsports podcast. You're listening to Crush This, a monster truck podcast presented by High Octane Coffee and J Concepts. A show where we take you inside the minds of your favorite drivers, past and present, of the monster truck industry. And now, your hosts, Brad Shaw and Dan Chichagash. Buckle in. The show starts now.
And welcome to a brand. Oh, okay. Cheech just left. What is going on? Okay. On start, guys. Welcome to Crush This, a monster truck podcast. What's going on? What the heck? What's going on, Cheech?
Hey, how's it going? How's everyone doing? Woo-wee!
What we do as soon as we go live, you just bolt. I'm like, oh no, what's going on? I can see our guest I can see Brandon just laughing his ass off right now.
Woo! Everything's okay. I had to make dinner.
Fire?
No fire. But my beeper went off my phone, and then my phone's on silent, and I see it pop out. Oh! And I went over because there's like a certain time frame on the pizza, and I'm good. That's what's up. How's it going? Good night.
well, guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Crush This Live. I am the monster truck conductor, Brad Shaw, and the guy that's in a panic, in a rush, didn't burn his house down is Dan Agash, drinking his juice or pop or beer, whatever he's drinking out of there, in the Philadelphia Penguins.
Boys.
Hey,
what the heck? You just...
I'm sorry, okay?
Pittsburgh!
It's been a long 24 hours. Pittsburgh Penguins.
I hope the Blackhawks beat you.
Okay, no. Edmonton.
You said Philadelphia. Philly. That's like saying you like Calgary.
Hey, don't you dare.
Yeah, see? You better take that back. So you say Pittsburgh, not Philadelphia.
Pittsburgh Penguins, okay?
Thank
Pittsburgh
you.
Penguins.
Speaking about cool news, how about the Seattle Kraken?
Yes, that's something new. It's going to be interesting to see who they're going to take from each team. So, but hey, I hope Edmonton wins against Chicago because it's in Edmonton, and Edmonton desperately needs that champion. They need the Stanley Cup. It's their year. I'm going to say it now. It's their year. So, hey, I love it. I'd love it.
Frankly, everyone's on a clean slate if you think about it.
Yes, and I hope if it turns out to be Edmonton and the Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals, oh boy, that's going to be something good.
I have to be honest with you. I just think it's going to be the first team to get. It could be anyone. So if anyone got the best momentum, like I personally think the way I see it. The history before, the Penguins has always been a slow-moving team, and then they get the ball rolling. I don't know if they're going to do it this year. I hope maybe next year when everything gets better, but I'm just happy that hockey season gets back and going. That's all I care about. Hopefully the Pens beat the Canadians. Sorry, Christian and Phil, you're a Canadian fan, but sorry, like eggnog. Kidding.
But hey, you know what, Cheech? We don't want those guys to have some bad news and then travel fast to their hometowns.
Like our sponsorship, because we forget to tell them thank you at the beginning of the program.
Yes, we want to give a huge thank you to High Octane Coffee, Joy Sylvester. She's just got the Bad Habit shirt on. J Concepts, Jay Serona and Fred Reap. Back Channel Productions, Nick Davis. Chris Bozen and 6B Apparel making the crew shirts. We're not wearing them today, but making our awesome crew shirts. We also got Marty Garza and his book, Monster Truck Technology. Go check that out. I haven't had the chance to check it out yet. And JB
Arnold.
Yep, John Arnold. And we also have JB Scale Graphics. Okay. He is the official licensed graphic maker of RC bodies for Bigfoot, Bad Habits. What else was there? Obsessed and Overkill Evo. So go check all them out. But I kind of hinted to our guest in that little thing. This gentleman we had on one of our very first episodes back in the day, over 5 years ago. You know, I say 5 years ago. It's been 5 years we've been doing this.
Yeah,
and you know, we are so back then we talked to him about the FS1 series. So it shows how long it's been. He is the driver of the Bad News Travels Fast monster truck. Everybody, give a huge round of applause for Mr. Brandon Derrow.
Hey. Yeah, kind of burnt house.
I saw you, Brett. I was looking in the little like thing on the bottom on my screen. Yeah. I saw you just dying laughing all of a sudden. I've never seen a fat man run that fast, and I'm a fat man myself.
He was gone.
Yeah. So speaking about sports, before we let go, I know you're a Redskins fan, right?
Yes.
So what's going on? How do you feel about this Washington football team name?
I'm not sure what to think of it at this point, man. I just wish they would get to the name, you know, a new name and just move on. It seems like the longer they drag this thing out, the worse it's going to be. And I know I've heard they're going through some copyright issues. Maybe that's what it is. But, yeah, man, I love the Redskins. I always support them, but it was definitely a huge change, that's for sure.
We're going through the same thing here in Alberta with our team, the Edmonton Eskimos. Now, because, you know, Eskimos can be a very, I guess, derogatory term. And they're going to be known right now as either the EE Football Club, because Edmonton Eskimos, or just the Edmonton Football Club. So we're going through the exact same thing. And people like, even in the Inuit communities and stuff like that, people are like, yeah, we like the name. It supports us. But people are like, nope, we don't like it. It's just like, come on, guys, just. Yeah. It's a sports team. Like, are they going to change the Chicago Blackhawks name now?
Yeah.
Or the Cleveland Indians?
Yeah,
that's true too. Yeah. Yeah.
So how's everything been going with you, man? It's been 5 years since we got to chat with you. So what's been going on, man?
It's been going great, man. We're just kind of waiting this whole COVID-19 thing out and just hoping to get back to some shows here soon. And like I was telling you earlier, Brad, we've got a show coming up August 7th. In Bowling Green, Ohio, so we're super stoked about that, man. We're ready to get back out there with the Bad News family and meet all those awesome fans.
How about that one show that you had with Kevin King? Tell us about how that got connected and how was it racing in our backyard?
That was actually really, really cool, man, and I actually commended him for that. I didn't know if something like that was going to work, but it totally did. It worked out as well as I think it could have. He just kind of hit us up last minute and said he had a truck cancel on him and asked him if we'd like to be a part of that. And I said, absolutely, anything to bring monster trucks back out to all the fans, I'm definitely in for that. And so we went down there. We had a great time. And he had actually sectioned it off. He had a fence and everything and posts to where the trucks could back their trucks right up there to the fence and put their tailgate down. And it was social distancing and all that. We didn't have the pit party and we didn't have any post-show autographs or anything like that. But we were still able to interact with the fans, get out on the tire, wave at the fans, and things like that. So it brought some sort of normalcy back to it. It wasn't quite the same, but it was awesome given the time that we're living in right now.
So talk about, being an owner operator and, you're doing first quarter with Monster Jam and all of a sudden everything just shuts down. Like, we've talked to certain people about it, but as an owner driver, how hard is that to deal with? Your first quarter is something that you guys always are depending on for, every single weekend you're out, going show to show, state to state, and it just stops. How was your mentality when all that happened? Were you like, oh man, this is not going to be good? Or are you really like, okay, we're just going to deal with it. And whenever shows start happening, we're just going to go.
It was definitely difficult at first, because I'm not one to slow down. I'm always wanting to stay on the go doing something. So at first I didn't know how long this was going to last. I thought, well, if this is a month or two deal, let's just sit back, get some things done around the house. We've been wanting to get done for years. And spend some extra time with the family, most importantly. But I didn't know it was really going to drag out this long. And as Cheech knows, you spend so many months preparing these trucks for first quarter, and then you get them, just the way you want them. I feel like we were sitting our stride with the truck. Everything was doing awesome. We had done 6 or 7 weekends. and all we had was a water pump issue and those 7 weekends. So the truck was doing phenomenal. All the changes we had made during tear down was working for us. And it was really, that was probably the most difficult part. It's like, man, we got the truck where we want it. We're putting on a show for all these fans, they're coming out to see us and all that. And then bam, it just all stops all of a sudden. So it really opened up all of our eyes, I believe, to not take anything for granted, because you just don't know if what's going to happen, in the weeks, months ahead.
So, did you guys, like, for our team at Hall Brothers, we kind of did projects throughout right now that is always on the mental list, like going through the trailer, or, maybe going through the truck a little bit more, or doing smaller stuff that helps us out. Did you guys have to do the same thing? Like, on your mental list saying, I wanted to do something to that truck and now I have time to do it, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Or, trailers and rigs and stuff like that. Were you doing pretty much the same thing?
I have been catching up on some of that stuff. Like, I've been dreading this, but I actually painted the whole trailer, hand painted the whole trailer. That was something I've been wanting to get done for years. And I kept track of how much time it actually took me to do it. And it took 41 hours to paint the trailer, but it turned out awesome. And like I said, something I've been wanting to do forever. And even small things like working on my 280ZX turbo car. I've been wanting to put an alternator on that for 3 years. Finally got around to doing that. And like I was telling you, most importantly, man, it's just been awesome to be able to spend a little bit extra time with the family, and that's always nice to be able to do that. I'm fortunate enough to where most of the time I can take my family on the road with me to all these shows, or most of the shows. But it doesn't hurt, to be able to stay home and enjoy that time too.
So let's talk about your first quarter a little bit. You said, the only kind of issue you had in 6 or 7 weekends was just a water pump. Talk about, how the truck's been performing now that you have had, a couple more, quite a bit more experience behind the truck, running in the small arenas and stuff like that. How was your first quarter? How was everything kind of working with the truck?
It was going great, man. We put our big engine back in. It's a 571 cubic inch. And it's on its final bore, and so it's probably never going to run any better than what it was first quarter. And the winds really didn't reflect that as far as the wheelie wins or freestyle wins or racing wins. We was able to get 4 racing wins, but the truck was just doing so phenomenal. We were right there with them, and anytime you can compete with those guys like we were running with first quarter, that's all we can ask for. So we were in the conversation week in and week out, and we were just tickled to death. And we had changed a little bit of the valving and the shocks, and so the shocks was working well for us, and just seemed like everything that we did tear down, it seemed to work for us. And sometimes you make changes and you're like, we don't know if this is going to work or not, but you don't know until you try. But it actually seemed like the changes were working well for us, and that's why I'm really so excited to get the truck back out there and perform again, because it was just doing so well for us.
Cheech? You there, Cheech?
One thing that I always liked about the hear me?
Are you there?
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello? You can hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what's going on. I guess my internet's all acting up. It shouldn't be. I took my Wi-Fi off. Am I getting choppy or something?
Yeah, you're a little bit choppy, but it's all good. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. So back to my question. So anyway, the cool thing is that the chassis that you have is kind of dated back all the way to the early 2000s. It's almost kind of in the next couple of years, it's going to be a 20-year-old chassis.
Yes, it
but
will.
To the average person, though, they don't even know that because of how tight and how clean you guys been taking care of the truck. And that's proven to me it doesn't matter how old the truck is, if you know how to take care of it and stuff like that. I know the chassis have some stress and stuff like that, but if you're on top of the game on it, then you'll be able to keep the truck running. And
exactly.
And I mean, the truck is right now, the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And, is there any idea through up in the air that are you guys maybe proceeding on getting like a new Patrick chassis or something else, or you guys are just gonna run this thing until it's can't run no more?
I think we're just gonna stick with it, man. It's been like you said, it's been 16 years since that chassis was first built. It was started in 03 and finished in 04. And like you said, as far as the maintenance on it, that all goes back to Bruce and Jamie Haney. They're the ones that started with that chassis, and they took tremendous care of it. And that was one thing that really sold the truck to me. I was like, man, this truck, I see it every year in Fishersville, Virginia. It's always so clean. I love the truck, the way it runs, the way it looks. It was always so clean and ran so well. And so when that idea came up to purchase the truck, I was just, my wheels started turning. I'm like, man, I got to find a way to get this truck. And we've just tried to carry on that legacy that Bruce and Jamie started and trying to do the name well. And I think we have for the most part. If you ask Bruce, he's pretty proud of us. And so we're just trying to carry on that legacy, man. Keep going with this chassis, like you said. Staying on top of things. You can't let 2 or 3 problems go, or it's going to escalate into a big problem. So just bring it in the shop every week. Check for stress cracks. Go everything with a fine tooth comb, and I think that's the way to maintain them.
So how is Bruce doing? Does he miss being out every weekend, or does he miss kind of getting behind the wheel? Does he ever call you up and hey, let me get behind the wheel sometime?
No, he doesn't call me up and say that, but he actually a couple of years ago when I broke my foot, he drove for me at a show in Georgia, and it's like he was never even out of the seat. He did an awesome job. I couldn't have done better myself. And so I know back in 2018, we were wanting to get him back behind the wheel as well then for the 20th anniversary for the Bad News name, and it just didn't quite pan out. But hopefully here in the next couple of years, that offer still stands to him. Anytime he wants to hop in that truck and go, he is more than welcome.
So let's talk about last year. You had your opportunity to run at the 4-wheel drive Jamboree. I think you missed one event, only Bloomsburg, right?
I did. Yep, that was the only one.
But how was the experience, and how fun to let that truck out in a big field and race some of the top competitors in the game, especially some of them that's known for long straight drag racing. But how about for you? How was the experience?
It was incredible, man. Like you and I'm sure a bunch of people, we grew up watching the Jamborees. So just to get that call to say, hey, would you like to be a part of this was kind of a dream come true in itself, because ever since the early 90s, man, I've been watching the Jamboree. So just to be a part of that was just incredible. It was so much fun. Like you said, the big tracks, the big speeds, we had to make a gear change, run a gear that we never run anywhere else, pretty much for that long track. And so it was made for a lot of fun racing, a lot of cool air, slap wheelies. They had some cool obstacles set out there for us. And so if the opportunity ever presents itself to do the Jamborees again, we'd like to be a part of that. If not, at least we got to do it that one year, and we could say that was something on our bucket list for sure that we always wanted to be a part of. So we were definitely blessed.
And especially last year with the Jamborees, the competition, you had Mikey Vaughters and Mike Vaughters Sr. out there. You had the Ram Boys. You had Christian Norman and Bigfoot. The competition was very stout. And were you nervous going into knowing that you guys had, you had to compete against the Hall brothers, the Ram, the Vaughters trucks, Bigfoot? Were you nervous at all? Or were you like, okay, I know I've raced against some of these guys. I know what they're like. Did you have any nerves coming into that season?
Not at all, man. We love opportunities like that, because if we can get out there and run with some of the world's best trucks, and I consider all those trucks you mentioned some of the world's best. And so anytime you can get out there and run with those guys and even come close to beating them, you're doing something. You're doing good for yourself. And we had a fun time, and it was just incredible, man, being out there. And I hope we get to do it again sometime. I think a lot of that's changed too, as far as changed hands within the company there who runs the Jamborees. But hopefully again someday we'll get that opportunity, because we had a blast.
Funny. By the way, tell Pops I said hi.
He funny said to tell all you guys hi.
Yeah. A funny story about we were about across the street from each other in Lima, Ohio, and I was just chilling. I was like, man, what time is it? And the guys are, 11 o'clock. And I was like, oh, is Pops up yet? And they're like, no, not yet. So I rush in, open the door of the trailer, and I went, pop, pop. I try to do my best impression of Emily, and I was like, show's at 1 o'clock. You got 15 minutes. And I left. And then Pops hurry up, puts his clothes on, stuff like that. And he looks at Brad and he goes, he says, like, what time is it? And you're like, it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was totally fooled on that. He was freaking out. Oh, man. He let you have it later for that, too.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, he let me know. He let me know. That was he's like, oh, he was laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
It was great.
That was a great time.
It was a good time. There's another story too that was pretty cool. Like one of your first events, I think it was at Lexington, Kentucky. I think back in 12. Remember Jeff Perrin put that rookie racing stripe on the back bumper of your truck? That was a good time also. And it was just, you just put the yellow racing stripe and you ran it. You ran the whole time.
Some of the coolest pictures that was taken of the truck at that event, you can just see that yellow tail just flying in the breeze, man. It was so funny.
Oh my!
But that was actually my first Monster Jam show I ever did, was that event in Lexington there.
So let's talk about the origins of the color changes, because the truck when it first started, I mean, it was the basic paint job until he came up with the chassis in 03, and then he had the Hot Wheels deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, by every 3 years or every 2 or 3 years, you change a paint scheme and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take, it's obviously the idea comes about maybe changing a color, but what makes you feel comfortable about changing the color of the truck? And also, how long does it take the process to go, okay, we're going to stick with this color. Let's go on and move on for next year for that?
Yeah, the color is something I really think about a lot. It's a lot of thought that goes into it. You kind of start running ideas through your mind, like what could I add to it to kind of spice it up, change things up a little bit. And Bruce's theory, he kind of ran the bodies, the same scheme for about 4 years apiece. So the truck was red for 4 years and it was orange for 4 years. And what very few people know is actually whether we bought the truck or not in October 2011, the truck was either going to be purple or dark blue of some sort when it came out in 2012. So that was already in the works through Mattel and Hot Wheels before we ever bought the truck. But it just worked out great, that when we bought it from Bruce and Jamie, it was kind of a different owner. It was kind of a new era here. We're starting fresh with a new scheme. And that really worked out well. And we ran that scheme for 4 years. And then we went to the green, which we really like. And I probably wouldn't have changed it quite so soon from the green. But that's when in 2018, we had the 20th anniversary for the Bad News Travels Fast name. So we wanted to do something kind of cool with that. And so we just started brainstorming, me and Pops, and just came up with the idea, how about we throw some throwback colors on it, but kind of leave the current graphics and change that up a little bit. And so that's what we did. And we ran that body for 2018. And then 2019, we switched the logo up a little bit, put some different colors on the logo. And then in 2019, my daughter was born at that time. So we added a girl biker to the driver's side while my son's on the passenger side. So we're always trying to mix it up a little bit, even if it's minor changes to where it's different from year to year. I'm thinking next year we're going to stick with the black again, especially since this year was kind of shortened on us. But I'm thinking 2022 when it comes out, we're going to have a fresh look on it then. And me and Dad's been talking about some ideas, throwing them back and forth. And so I think we're going to go for like a totally different, fresh look for 2022.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm excited to see that, Mike Arndt, who does a lot of your stuff, is an awesome designer, one of the best in the business. And he always comes up with some great ideas. I quickly wanted to talk. You mentioned, you guys mentioned, what was it, Fishersville? There's a comment on here from Wayne Norbury. It says, Fishersville, VA is an awesome show. Deal Wilson puts on a great show. Talk about that show, because I believe there's some footage on YouTube of that. Talk about that show, because there's some pretty good lineups for those shows.
Oh man, yeah. Deal always puts together one of the best lineups you'll ever see anywhere. I mean, it's a bunch of times he's had Bigfoot, the Hall brothers, there, and that's about as good as it gets. If you can get big names like that coming out to the shows. In the last couple of years, he's had Jim Kohler, an Avenger, and his son Chris come out too, and so that's been an awesome addition to the lineup. But every year you can count on a good lineup through Deal and Performance Motorsports. And it was such a bummer this year that we couldn't do this show, but I totally understood why. It was actually supposed to be last weekend. And so that's the first time that there hasn't been a show in Fishersville since probably the mid-'80s. I mean, they ran the TNT series there in '89, and that was the first show that I ever went to as a child. When I was a year and a half old, and Dad took me, and he was still pushing me around in a stroller, and we parked up on the hill. And that particular show, Buffalo Tremor won. So it's a lot of history at that track, and it's awesome that that legacy's been able to carry on for that long at that track. So hopefully, 2021 we can get back on track. And like I was telling someone the other day, even if we would have had the event this year, it just wouldn't have been the same, with the social distancing and all that. And the fans that come out to that show are some of the most diehard monster truck fans you'll see anywhere. And all of us drivers love interacting with those fans before and after the show. I mean, they'll wait for 2 hours for an autograph after the show, and the show ends at 9:45 or 10 o'clock. So that shows how dedicated those fans are. So I'm really hoping in 2021 we can bring the trucks back to there.
And speaking of which, how was it to have the legendary Mike Wine as a crew chief for you at Fishersville, Virginia, bringing the best out of the TNT and modern day into one? Did you learn a lot? Did he bring back a lot of feedback to you on driving the track? And he's pretty good at diagnosing trucks too. So he's always with a little flashlight flashing around like, what's going on here? So
yes, he is.
How was he?
He was awesome, man. I love Mike Wine like he's one of my own family. I consider him family. And so just to have him there pretty much in our corner there with our crew shirt on, it's like, man, this is as good as it gets, because he performed at that track too back in 1989, the first show I ever went to. And so it was incredible for him. That was the first time in 30 years that he had been there. So just for him to come back to a track that he performed at so long ago. And what I really appreciated about it is after every round of racing, he's coming up in the cab talking to me. Hey, you need anything? Is everything good? Try this the next round. Try this the next round. Because he could see things outside the truck, that I'm not seeing, because he's outside the truck watching it like a hawk. I can only feel how it's doing inside the truck. But just having those little tips and pointers from a legend like him was just awesome to have the whole weekend.
Well, with a guy like Mike, he'll keep you on your toes. Like some of the stories that he's told us, like we did 3 hours with him once, and some of the stories he had us just in tears with a lot of the jokes and stuff that he's told us. How is he always a prankster around you? Is he always trying to do something just to make you guys laugh?
Before the show and after the show, most definitely. But when he was coming up in the truck with me and giving me pointers, he was all business. And that's when he knows, I guess, to turn it off is when it's showtime. And he's committed then. He's all in. But I'm telling you, the Mike Wine that you can experience before or after the show, it doesn't get any better, because it's never a dull moment. That's for sure.
Like the one time we had that family picture at Lima, and he tried to grab me where the hoo-hoo, and I was like, "Get away, Mike!"
Yeah. I still got that picture somewhere.
Oh, geez.
I think it's taken with Pop's camera, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I had to get on the ladder so I could be in the same height as him. And
oh yeah, he went and got the ladder, didn't he?
Yeah, and he's like, I just want a picture with you, Cheech. Just me and you is the same height. And I was like, okay, Mike.
Oh yeah.
You should have been just get down to my level now.
Yeah. It's harder to get down to my level. But it's Mike. Miss the guy. He's doing all right now.
He's one of the best, man. I actually talked to him here a few weeks ago about coming to Bowling Green, but I think that's like a 3.5 hour ride for him. So I don't know if he'll be able to make it or not, but we'd love to have him for sure. He's always a guest, and he's like family to us. Anytime we're close to him, we let him know we're going to be there.
Who's doing the Bowling Green show, by the way?
I think it's Bobby Holman. Bobby Holman's crew.
Okay.
Is doing that. Yep.
Awesome. I think that's what Top Notch Performance, Top Notch, something like that. I know Andy Lulum is watching. He helps them out all the time, so he can give some good feedback on what's going on there.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So,
we love Andy too. I've been messaging him, and I think he misses me a lot. So we'll be able to see you here in a couple weeks, buddy.
We're gonna ask one question since all of us are musical. I love music. We love hard rock.
Hey, I saw one comment. Impending Doom. Heck yeah.
Yes. Well, one of my coworkers and the driver of the ammunition monster truck, almost said Monster Jam truck. We're so used to that. Monster truck was asking, what's your favorite Mushroom Head song?
My favorite Mushroom Head song?
Yeah.
I haven't listened to a whole lot of Mushroom Head, to be honest. I used to work with a guy that would tell me all about them, man. And there's some of the songs I have listened to by them, and I do like them. I just can't remember the name. But I was kind of all along the lines of like Killswitch Engage, Lamb of God, bands like that, man. That's what I really love.
Okay, what's your favorite Killswitch song?
Oh man,
it's hard because you got the Howard Jones era, and you also got the I'm forgetting his name right now. Jesse Leach era.
Yeah,
I'm a Howard Jones guy. I will say that right now. Howard Jones is my favorite vocalist of Killswitch.
Yeah, well, that was another thing I was so stoked about. Is back in March, I was supposed to go see them live with Light to Torch, and I had heard a rumor that at the end of their concert that Howard was going to come out and sing with Jesse on stage, and I'm like, man, this is as good as it gets. And so I was really bummed out. They're hoping to postpone the shows until next year, so hopefully they'll be able to do that because that was going to be an awesome show for sure.
What kind of, like, do you listen to music before you're going to step into the truck? Like, what do you listen to that amps you up right before you're about to go out?
I really don't listen to anything, man. I just sit in the truck. I like to get in the truck for probably 10 or 15 minutes before the show and just kind of calm down for a minute and strap in. And like when you think you're tighter, man, just pull your belts a little bit more tighter because as you relax and all your nerves and stuff calm down, you can actually tighten your belts even more. So I just like to kind of sit there and collect my thoughts and kind of to myself there for a couple minutes. And if I listen to music, hard rock before the show, God only knows what would happen. I'd probably be out there and wreck right off the bat, probably.
And by the way, guys, I guess Andy said it's Top Notch. I guess that's the company.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's somehow the music in general, like we listen to on the road. I mean, we'll listen to anything from 80s pop to Demon Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah. Demon Hunter.
All that type of music just to get you amp up because you know how it is while driving a rig. You need to do that. That's what you need to do, Brad. Get a little boombox or whatever you play up in Canada and play some just music.
Yeah.
Trust me, while you're driving a rig, and Jason Childress said it perfectly, you'll start singing songs. And just to keep your mind in gear, you're just driving around in your rig and you start playing music like a radio, XM radio, or a radio with an auxiliary cord. To me, is a truck driver's best friend.
Yeah,
because that right there, obviously XM radio, you don't have to keep on changing different radio stations wherever you're at the United States. It plays all over the United States. If you get tired of that, you just plug in your phone, play music. I mean, obviously the phone's playing music and you have your GPS or you have your GPS in your noggin, some truck drivers do, and you're just driving and doing your thing. You have music playing. So, me and Kurt just got done listening to the new album from Mushroom Head. So that came out a couple weeks ago. So we've been listening to that a little bit. And I've been in a Treyu mood lately. So I've been listening to a lot of Treyu. So a little bit of some. I did go back to maybe the first two albums of Killswitch, but then I switched up to Treyu, and then I've been on a tantrum. Therium. I on that band. Yes, been on a kick on them for a little bit. And then out of nowhere, I kick it from that to like 90s punk rock. And then I was like Good Charlotte and, New Found Glory. And I'm like, all right, we'll just go with that.
You're as bad as me then.
Okay. No. I can go from Impending Doom, which is like brutal, like death metal style, and all of a sudden I'll go to like some country, or I'll listen to some like completely opposite music. Like if there's one thing, like I'll say.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm hungry.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Cheech. I'll say this. Being a musician myself, I'm a drummer. I've played in some bands and stuff like that. I play in my church, and I've had to go out, do shows, travel, and do shows. It's I kind of consider, even though it's two separate things, they're both similar as monster trucking and music. You got to have that passion for it.
Yes.
I have passion for both, but like, having to go up for being a drummer, set up all your drums and stuff like that, can get annoying. You can get burnt out, but if you have the love and the passion for it, it's something that, it's that saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes, I totally agree.
And for you, like when you go to a show and you see all those little kids, it probably reminds you of, hey, that used to be me. That used to be me standing in the autograph line. That was me in the stands watching the trucks go, and that's what drove you. And does it get hard sometimes? Traveling every weekend. Sometimes you get burnt out, and then was the moment when you see those kids, does that make it all worth it?
It totally does, man, because sometimes when you get back to the shop, you just got so much work to do, and it's easy to get burnt out. It can be pretty stressful at times. Pretty much, if you're wondering if you're going to make it to the next show, if you have some really bad damage, but as soon as you get to the next show, that's what makes it totally worth it, man. Once you see the smile on all those kids' faces. And I can totally relate because, for 23 years, that was me standing in those autograph lines, going up and meeting those drivers. And those guys were my heroes. And so it's kind of cool that it's came full circle like that, and you get to come back and, put those same smiles on those kids' faces. And that's what totally makes it all worth it.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed. It's just and also you're kind of seeing like kids are growing up now, and now you're gonna be pretty soon. Brandon's gonna see that boy could be a dad, and then he's like, "Oh, that's brand new show sass," and or that nature. But let's talk about the Hall of Fame for a little bit because you're there frequently all the time, and then you outside of you being a monster truck driver, you also was a fan, and you also date back of going to see them and stuff like that. So, for you, how is the Hall of Fame to you?
That's as good as it gets, man. That's kind of whatever week that is in November every year. That's kind of my weekend just to geek out, and just see all the heroes that I grew up watching. And I'm just still in awe of it every year I go because they're always adding new things, new trucks, new drivers. It seems like every year there's people there that's never been there before. Like a few years ago, John Moore was there. He had never been there before. And then Fred Schaefer last year was there. And it's like, man, this is incredible. Finally getting to meet these guys that I watched on TV forever, since I was a toddler. And so it's just incredible, man. And in fact, I get to do it with my family too. My dad, he's the one that introduced me to monster trucks. And so he's always there with me. And then my son went last year, and then my son and daughter went the year before. So it's awesome. It's just a family affair, get to go out and have fun, catch up with some of these, Hall of Famers that you do know, and then meet some of the ones you haven't met before.
I know that I've been wanting to make the trip for a couple of years myself. And, now with the borders, I'm just like, maybe if it can happen.
We don't even know yet.
Well, Canadians we can't drive over the border, but we can fly. I think that's what the thing is right now. So definitely, I definitely want to make it out to that because I look at stuff every year and like you never know what truck is being restored and what's going to be shown. Like Taurus. Oh, Mike Wine's in the chat, everybody. We got Mike Wine here. Mike Wine. He says Brendan Derrow and family in my book are like my adopted family.
Same to you, Mike, for sure.
What about me, Mike? What about me?
Yeah. What about your redneck Canadian cousins or whatever? What about me? What about all these Canadians? Hey, I've heard stories about you in Canada, Mike. Okay.
Has ever met you in person, Brad?
No, but I've heard stories from.
This leaves you out of it.
but I've heard. Okay, I heard one story. This is from a tech official, Jr. And I was talking, and Cheech has met Jr. as well. So she was doing a show in Edmonton, and it was like Jr. just started with Monster Jam, and it seemed like Mike was having a problem with the truck. So he comes over. It's like, hey, what's going on? All of a sudden, you just see water pour out of the truck right onto JR. It was just like shenanigans. That's all it is.
Yeah. Totally.
And even some of the stories that he's told us about him and Dennis, and Mike is one of those class acts of the sport, and one like I can just listen to stories from him. From especially the TN. And hey, that if you go to the Hall of Fame, you never know who's going to be there. Mike's been there before, and that's one thing about the Hall of Fame is like you never know who you're going to run into, what trucks you're going to see, what cool stuff is going to be available for you guys to purchase, like the Crush the shirts. Got to get that plug in there. Oh, it says LOL. He's my elf on the shelf. Love you, Dan. So if people don't know kind of what you do besides the monster trucks, kind of like what kind of activities do you do besides that? Because we'd like to get to know our guests outside of the monster truck stuff. So kind of like besides like being a music fan like you are, what kind of stuff do you do to unwind outside of the trucks and stuff?
I like working on cars, motorcycles, things like that, and most importantly, I love spending time with my family. Family's first in my book. And then just kind of winding down with cars and motorcycles. I like to listen to music too. And once upon a time, Brad, I was a drummer. I don't play so much anymore, but I started playing when I was in 5th grade, and I was kind of in a band myself. And me and my buddies would get together just to have a good time, play some old school rock. So I totally miss that. I'd love to go back to that and make that happen again sometime. But and I'm a huge weather nut. I almost wanted to get into the field of meteorology. Me and Dad actually went to several weather classes from the time, I was probably 17, 18 till I was early 20s. And that was always a passion of ours and still a passion of ours. And so here lately, the last couple of days around here, we've been having some severe weather and things like that. And so me and Dad are kind of nerds when it comes to that stuff. And if there's any severe weather in our area, the National Weather Service actually calls us for updates and things like that on what the storm did and things like that. So that's pretty cool. And but yeah, I love my family. I love riding motorcycles, working on cars, things like that. I'm just a typical guy, and just try to have a good time with it.
So, and also another thing, you're a huge Nissan fan. So. Yeah. When is it you're gonna finally put a Titan on that truck? What's the push? What are you gonna do from Chevy the Nissan Titan? Be a cool thing. But I know you're a huge Nissan fan. You love the Z Series cars, and when are you gonna do
it? That would be cool and definitely original. I don't think that's been done yet.
No.
So that would definitely be cool, but. I kind of like it all, though. I'm probably a Chevrolet guy at heart, but Nissan's definitely very close, especially the Z cars. I've had 5 or 6 Z cars over the years, so they definitely hold a special place in my heart. And oddly enough, Mom is the one that sparked that passion, because Mom had an 81 280ZX Datsun that we still have. It's just not on the road anymore. But that was a car Mom had bought in 1987, and it still starts up and runs. It just needs a little bit of work. But they're great cars, and the only thing was with them is they rusted so bad. It's hard to find one that's in good shape anymore. But they're great cars and just run forever.
So you mentioned drums, and me being a drummer, I have to ask you, who's on your Mount Rushmore of drumming? My definite top is Neil Peart, like hands down. He's like the grand poobah of my list. But yes. What drummers did you like when you played and that you looked up to at the time?
Yeah, he's definitely up there at the top, man. I always loved Alex Van Halen. I thought he was incredible. And I was a big fan of Joey Kramer also, which was the drummer for Aerosmith. I always thought he was a solid guy, and I actually bought his book and read the book several years ago, and he just seems like a real stand-up guy. And I'm a fan of a lot of drummers, actually, and one that I really like that people may not know a whole lot about is a drummer from Skillet. Jen is her name. And I tell you, for a girl drummer, she's pretty phenomenal. Way she can sing. She's a great singer, and she's a great drummer on top of it. And I'm sure you know this, Brad. It's hard to do both, play drums and sing, especially as well as she does.
It's hard because you're trying to keep time, keep the band in check. You're the heartbeat and the rhythm of that band, and you're trying to sing at the same time. It's like this doesn't end well at any moment of the time.
No. So I have the utmost respect for anybody that can play a musical instrument and sing at the same time. Maybe on certain songs I could do that, but it's not going to be a given every time. So they're incredible for sure.
By the way, if you do a Nissan Titan body truck, you got to put an RB26 in that thing. You got to go with the same kind of heart plant.
Oh man. That would be funny, huh?
I can just imagine you're at the line just spooling the turbo up, and it's like, what is that popping and banging? That's horsepower.
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Man, yeah. But they do have a V8.
They do now. Yes, they do.
So that'd be probably more towards that, or just driving.
Yeah.
I still think a turbo monster truck would be awesome. That's just me.
Yeah, but in rules and regulations, Brad, that would be illegal.
Yes. Yeah. But I could just imagine just on the two-step just shooting flames. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah. I always thought the truck G-Force back in the day was cool, the way it would blow the fire out and everything. The one that Alan Tora had back in the day, I always thought that was really cool.
There was one time they had a car crash with that G-Force, and my dad had a video on it. And then you hear the shh, but then behind, after he crushes cars, you hear rum, rum, rum. And you're like, wait a minute. And I was watching it more and more, and I was like, the truck's powered by a gas engine. It's just a flame shooter.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sound of jet.
Yeah, I've actually got a picture of that truck somewhere, man. I think it might be at Mom and Dad's, but I always thought that was a really cool concept. And he's a gentleman that was inducted in the Hall of Fame here a few years back.
Right. Also, with the Bad News truck, and I always was curious about this too. When you changed so many parts on that truck, is there one particular part that you guys were like, this is the right part for this truck? And was there any parts that you're like, I regret putting this on?
Not so much, man. I mean, the truck actually was pretty solid to begin with, man. Like I was talking about earlier, Bruce and Jamie did such a phenomenal job taking care of that truck. And so when we bought the truck, I mean, it was pretty much race ready, load it up, get ready to go and have fun with it. And one thing we had to change right off the bat was the stock housings. They had stock F-106 housings in them that had came out of a school bus, but they were just beefed up. And they were actually the original housings that were up underneath the Excalibur truck, the original Bad News truck when Charlie Pauken had it. So they were the housings that he had beefed up himself. And believe it or not, those housings are still being used to this day, but up underneath of Jack Brady's new ride truck. And so that was a new addition we had to add to the truck pretty quickly was the concussion housings. And to my knowledge, they were the first set of housings that Concussion made that we ended up with that actually had the inspection cover in them to where you could actually take the cover off, look in at your ring and pinion. As you guys know, the pinion bearing's kind of the weak link with those F-106s. So if you can look in there every so often and just say, hey, the bearing looks good, the clip's still on the bearing, it all looks good in there, check the oil level. That was kind of a peace of mind for us. And that's one thing we do also with the maintenance is every week we take that cover off, just look in there, make sure the level's good, everything. There's no chipped teeth on the ring and pinion, anything like that, and just go over it. It's just extra thing you can do for peace of mind as far as maintenance on the truck.
So, do you remember the first time that you were able to get behind the wheel? Like, do you vividly remember it? And what was your reaction the first time that you got air? Was it like, man, I just got so much air, and then you talk to him, he's like, you only got a foot.
Yeah.
Was it like, did it feel like a lot more than what you actually got?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I remember that day just like it was yesterday. A friend of ours that owns a junkyard in Newmarket, Kirk French, he put a Toyota Corolla car and a little S10 pickup out there for me to crush. And that was the only practice I'd had as far as crushing cars before we went to our first show, which was 2 days after that in Swainsboro, Georgia for Kevin King. He was the promoter for that show. And so, yeah, I can just remember every detail. It just felt so weird, getting in behind the wheel and just actually crushing cars for the first time. It's a feeling you really can't explain to anybody until they've done it themselves. And so it was awesome to be able to do that. And like you said, I felt like I was getting 10 feet of air and I was barely clearing the cars, But it was a lot of fun. It was practice that I needed for sure. And I think that's why the first show went pretty well for us, as we was able to get that practice in. So that was a huge thanks to Kurt, on that. And sadly enough, Kurt actually just lost his life a few weeks ago that owned that junkyard. And so without him, we'd have never got our first original start.
Sorry, my boss sent me a picture of a 89 cab over Pete. 1989 with 465,000 miles. Only for $12,000 and monthly payments of $201.
Is that one for you?
I want it.
You want it?
Yeah. Paint that thing black, and then everyone says, "Oh, it's bad. It's bad. Bad handling." It is, but I'm willing to sacrifice. But Stephen Walker said, "You're his hero."
Oh, no, he's
Stephen,
mine.
you were my hero.
Yes.
You were my hero at the night of the hotel area when you fell asleep. You're my hero, Stephen Walker.
Mine too, for sure. Yeah, that was a great night.
We said hello there, Stephen. It's pretty cool. Talk about we always have these. I always call them coworkers, but they're they only appear when we're at a show or if we need help, and you get that a lot too, like us at the Hall Brothers. How is it to have that attention? Not attention. Let me rephrase that. How you would have those people like knowing where you're at, and they're more willing to help you out. And how are those folks for you guys? Because Mike Wine helps you out. Steven will help you out. You have so many volunteers that help you with the truck. And how do they meant to you? I mean.
Oh, they're just like family, I consider every single person that helps us, from Nick Wisher to Todd Kearns, and Mike Wine, and a lot of these guys that come out and help us year after year. That's a huge help, and it takes a load off of me, once we get to the shows, me and Dad, because you wore out anyway from driving to the show. A lot of these shows you got to drive 12, 14 hours to get to. So you're a little mentally drained once you get there to begin with. But when you get people like that's willing to help out like they are, and they're just as passionate about it as we are, that really makes you feel good, and just having them in your corner willing to help at any time, it's just awesome. You couldn't ask for any more. And that's why I consider them like family, because they're there at the drop of a hat for us. And we love those guys for sure.
When I first started, before I went to Monster Jam, I always helped you guys out. I was there at your very first event, and you became a regular at the Washington County Fair and Wheeling, West Virginia. You're there maybe every 2 years with the Bad News truck at Wheeling. And even starting back with Bruce, Bruce was there in 2010, and then 2012 your truck, and then 14, and then seemed like every 2 years they always bring you back to Wheeling, West Virginia. But every single year you're with Deal. And it was cool to get the taste of, working on the trucks and stuff like that. Even, the first time staying overnight in a rig, you guys opened the doors for me to do that. And just, the cold nights in Columbus. Oh my. But anyway, it's always a good opportunity, a good, stepping stone to reach where I'm trying to get. But
Yeah.
and it's always been cool because I mean I consider you a good friend, and we've been been from the start, and it's been pretty cool, the long haul. Is there any track yet that you've been all across the United States, including we did the FS1 tour, Anaheim, and all the way to Fishers, Virginia? Is there a typical track that you still want to, that's still around? Let me rephrase that. It's still around, because lately in the last couple of years, a lot of buildings and a lot of racetracks been shutting their doors. But is there any particular track or building that you still want to, that has been marked in your head where you want to go to?
I always wanted to do Stafford Springs, Connecticut. That was always on the bucket list because I remember watching that show as a kid. I always wanted to do that show. And it always would end up being that show would be on the same weekend as Fishersville. And so you never could do that show. And I always kind of wished that they were on separate weekends, because I got to do Fishersville. That's one of my favorite tracks ever, so we got to do that one for sure. But Stafford Springs was definitely one of them. And there was one in New York also that used to be an old TNT track. It's kind of
West Lebanon?
West Lebanon, yes. That's another one that I always wanted to go to also. And I'm not sure if they still run there or not. I think Monster Jam did several years ago. But I think as late as like last year, I think they ran Stafford Springs too. So you never know. One day we might get that opportunity, but it's just straight line drag racing, and just a lot of fun. And that's probably our favorite type of racing is the straight line racing. But they kind of mix it up, they add that extra hump in the middle, and it just makes it even more entertaining for the fans. But those two tracks for sure.
I'm back.
Steven was a little bit late. He said, what's your favorite venue to run in? And you said Fishersville. So
exactly, one of them. Yeah. And Steven's been there. He's been there in the corner for us at that show a couple times, and all the Northeast shows. We did a bunch of New Jersey shows with Steven, Pennsylvania shows, and he was there with us, man. So great times.
I don't know if you guys have been talking about it, so I had to step away for a moment.
That's okay.
We're talking about favorite places to race at, and also how we got to know each other a little bit. So
okay, I'll ask this then: who is your favorite people to line up against?
Any of the guys, the old timers. I hate to call them the old timers, but anytime you can line up against, Deal Wilson or Mark Hall or any of these guys I grew up watching that were heroes to me, that's just as good as it gets for me, And Gary Porter was able to run with Gary Porter there for several years before he retired. And he was definitely one of my top heroes for sure, because I always loved the Carolina Crusher truck from the time that, I saw him for the first time in '89. It seemed like it was a yearly thing. He came to Fishersville. So I had a lot of exposure to him and to that truck. And he's always a super nice guy. And so he was definitely one of the favorites to run against. But the way I always looked at it, when you run the best in the world, and race them, that can only make you better. And so I never wanted to shy away from racing anybody. I always wanted to race them, because when you that's just more experience for you. If you can race the world's best and sometimes beat the world's best, that's another feather in your cap, so to speak. And it just makes you feel good, kind of as a smaller independent team like us. Anytime you can race with these guys, it's awesome. But if you can, keep hanging in there with them pretty close and everything, that's definitely what drives us.
Are you there, Cheech? Oh, Cheech might have died.
Uh-oh.
No, so I'll get okay. Kind of calling an audible here. So, growing up watching the Penta series, the Jamboree series, what tracks do you think back then were the trickier ones? Like let's say Lima, they didn't have like the final jump at the end usually. They had just like a ski jump.
Yeah.
What kind of were you more of like back then, did you like the technical stuff, or did you like just the all out balls to the wall, just flat foot and stuff like that?
I just love the straight line racing, man. Like that's what was always at Fishersville for the most part. Deal did a couple years of Chicago racing in addition to the straight line racing, but that's kind of what I cut my teeth on, was the straight line racing. So that's what I always loved the most. And most of those Penta shows were straight line racing. And it would pretty much just came down to who was the fastest truck, the best driver. You know, you line up at the line there, and it's just wide open, you know, to the finish. And that's got to be, looking back, if you watch some of those videos, got to be some of the best monster truck racing in history. Just seeing those guys go all out, and it seemed like the trucks were getting lighter then, you know, probably 9,000 pound area. You know, I don't even know if they were even 10,000 pounds. And to have as much horsepower as they had, I don't know if today the trucks could keep up with them. I mean, they were just so fast. Like, you see videos of Barefoot and Wildfoot, it's like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. You know, they're going halfway down the track and still in a wheelie. That's just incredible power and incredible control those guys had. And so yeah, that was definitely some of my favorite action was from those days.
Are you there, Cheech? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
I don't know. Frontier Internet sucks. Anyway, my other question, I don't know what question you guys were asking.
We were talking about the Penda series.
Oh, okay. Now I think you won the 2013 Wheelie Arena of the Year. But outside of that, is there any memorable racing wins that you had that's been stuck to your head that really sticks out?
They all hold a special place in my heart for sure, any win that we can get. And it's funny as a driver, and I don't know how it is as far as crew people or not, but like you mentioned a certain place and you can just automatically think of like certain things about that show, what set it off differently from other shows. And so it's funny, like Dad kind of gets tickled at me sometimes. He's like, how do you remember all this from certain shows and all that? But just, I don't know if it's being a part of that show and just every detail just, you know, vividly being in your mind there. I don't know if it's that or just the passion for it or what, but like you can ask me about any show we've ever done and I can tell you something about that track. And another person that was like that I met with several weeks ago was an announcer, Ken Dickinson, that did a lot of shows for Dale Wilson, and then hopefully someday he's a Hall of Famer because he deserves it. But hearing him talk, he celebrated his 76th birthday, and just going over and talking to him and all the history that he has seen, and he was knowing which trucks were there, who he interviewed. I mean, it was just incredible. So it must be something to do with just being a part of the show, but he was reliving every show like it was yesterday, and it's incredible. I can sit and listen to somebody for hours talk about that kind of stuff.
So we got a couple more questions here. We got a question from Alan Weaver. He asked, ever want to run at the dirt track at Charlotte?
We almost had the opportunity to do that one time, but it was a conflict of schedule. We was already booked somewhere else. We were asked by Brian Manson if we could do that show, but we were already booked. That's definitely an incredible course, and you better have your game face on when you go to that one because that one's a lot of speed, a lot of obstacles, and it would definitely be awesome to do that one sometime.
Now we have another one here. Andy Ullum also wanted to ask, how long did it take you to master those awesome slap wheelies?
Really, it wasn't too awful long, you know, just getting behind the wheel. And honestly, the hardest thing for me once I got behind the wheel was learning the rear steer and everything. That had to be the most difficult part. Being a drummer, that actually helped me with the timing part of things, you know, the slap wheelie, and a lot of that's timing. And so just timing it just right, you know, when that front end slaps and everything, be ready, be in the gas and ready for it. But yeah, it really didn't take too long as the truck was set up kind of for that already. And Bruce was good at those also. And we kind of run an older style of shock, you know, the reverse accumulator shocks. And so it lands a little bit harder in the front sometimes, but it makes it good for those slap wheelies, you know, and that's probably what we're honestly most known for is our wheelies.
So I know we quickly touched on, you know, some of the jamborees. We got a question from Mike Hedman talking about a specific one. He says, Brandon, what do you think about the Indy Jamboree after performing there for your first time last year?
I had a blast, man. Like I was talking about earlier, I hope we get the opportunity to do that again sometime. And I was actually talking to Stephen Walker about it a few weeks ago about maybe just going there as fans this year if they have it. I don't know what the current situation is on that out there. But
good.
It's still good? Okay, good. So I'm still a fan at heart, and I always will be. And so you may just see me out there. It's just an awesome experience to see everybody riding around their pickup trucks, just having a great time. They turn out for the show, and it's just awesome all the way around, and an experience I'll never forget for sure.
Hey, you should bring the truck just in case the truck breaks down. You never know.
Well, that happened last year. Yeah, it actually did happen. Bigfoot had some issues, and so they actually brought in RJ with War Wizard. He was able to step in there at that show and finish out the weekend. So he happened to be in the area. They called him up. He came in and did a good job.
So another thing is tell him Steven does better donuts than his Honda. So we always have this conversation. I'm taking this from Brad, is our pucker moment, and this transitions to another question. And this one had asking about if you had any major crashes with bad news, and I'm sure it was probably a bell ringer. So have you ever had a bad crash and ever had we call it a pucker factor or a pucker moment in your bad news truck? Any stories on that?
Well, the pucker moment for me was what we actually won the 2013 Arena Wheelie of the Year off of was in Charleston, West Virginia there, when it kind of just went up and we hit the cars. That's back when Monster Jam was still using cars for the arena and stadium events. And so they had watered the track a little bit right before the show, and they had us going out first for the wheelies, and it was a fresh car. And it spun a lot when I hit the cars and just tried to follow through with it, get some speed. But by that time, I didn't have enough speed really up to clear the cars very much. And so when it went up, it just landed. The wheelie bar came down in that first car. And it sat there for a couple of seconds, and then it started going over to the left. And I thought, oh, man, right here. It's my first rollover right here. And then about the time I was reaching for the gear shifter, Dad's in my ears saying, reverse, reverse. And so put it in reverse and was able to set it down. But that was a pucker moment for sure. And then had one in Detroit one year when the rear steer went haywire on us last minute, and I was about to hit a bus jump, and it kind of went off the side of the bus, but we was able to save it there in that instance. But the crash that probably hurt the most was we did a show in Orlando. That was kind of a last-minute deal that was going to be televised. So we wanted to go out there and put on a good show for all the fans and have a good showing for the Bad News Travels Fast name. And it just so happened like the second or third jump in that freestyle, we blew out the lock valve for the rear steer. And so the rear steer is just kind of flopping all over the place at that point. And so, but, you still want to go out there and fill your time and put on the best show you can for the fans. And my time had expired, my bonus time and everything expired. And so I wanted to hit one last jump. And it's always that last jump that you go to hit that's going to bite you. Well, that one bit me. And it actually corkscrewed. And when it came down, all the force of the impact came down on the cage. And actually bent the cage in some. That next week we had to take it to Dan's. And he cut that bar out and sleeved it and everything for us and did an awesome job. You could never even tell that the cage had been in like it did. But and I don't know if my helmet bit on one of those bars or what, but it definitely rang my bell, and I was seeing stars there for a little bit after that.
So another question that we asked at the show, I don't know if we had this question when we had you on. We didn't. Okay. So these are two questions that we've always asked our guests. One has to deal with those pesky Norman brothers, and one has to deal with our good friend, Mr. Brendan Culpepper. You've probably met Brandon before.
Oh, yeah.
So his question that we always ask, it's kind of staple. What is your favorite kind of pie?
Favorite kind of pie?
Yeah.
Pumpkin pie.
Still
Okay.
third
Love
place.
pumpkin pie. With
Now
about
in third place.
with about 10 scoops of Cool Whip on it.
I think that'd be the only way to make it manageable. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of pumpkin pie. I'm a cherry pie guy. I can't deny it. But the cherries had to be tart. That's the thing. It has to be tart. It can't be too sweet. It has to be tart.
What are you like, Mrs. Smith's or what?
I've actually been liking a pecan pie lately.
Okay.
I'm more of an apple, but I guess it's season because in October it's apple, in November pumpkin or sweet potato.
Oh, yeah.
Pumpkin
Yeah.
or sweet potato.
Oh, yeah.
And then in December, I'll inhale and question my life when I'm shoving 25 sugar cookies in my mouth. And then, I started out one time, my parents put a plate of sugar cookies and milk, making me think Santa Claus is there. I was getting a glass of water and I saw it and I inhaled it and I'm on the couch going like this. And the sister parents are like wondering what the hell's going on. And they're like, "Oh, Santa Claus ate that," but you can see cookie crumbs all over my shirt. I was like, that milk was gone. That was some good milk. And
Santa didn't come see you that year, then, did he?
Nope, I didn't get no damn coal.
little Daniel didn't get his Bigfoot Power Wheels that year.
Oh, I got my Bigfoot Power Wheels. I didn't get no coal. It wasn't even my Power Wheels. I think it was like a Safari Jeep. But I kept on calling it hot stuff. So I was like,
Dan, do you want to ask the next one?
No, I forgot.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Do you like eggnog or you hate it?
Eggnog? I haven't really drank much of it, to be honest. So I'm not 100% on that.
That's a win for us.
That's a win. We'll take that win.
Suck it, Norman Brothers.
We'll take that one. Take that one. We're good.
Are they huge fans of eggnog?
They love it.
Oh, yeah?
That's the crap.
They love it. I can't stand this stuff. I will despise it for days upon days. I just hate it.
Well, I'm just going to have to try it again. Just for them, I'll have to try it.
You're good. Just say you don't like it. We'll be all right.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
You're good. Don't
just next time you're around Christian, just grab a carton of eggnog, open it up, and just pour it right on the ground right in front of him.
That'd break his heart, man. I can't do that.
What other questions? We always ask people. Always ask people about Ron Bachman. I don't know if you ever did a show with him or not, but we always talk about him and how he was influenced in the monster truck industry. Did by hearing about him, or have you met him? Any stories about him, or?
I never had the opportunity to meet him, and I sure wish I could have. I remember Bruce and Jamie telling me a bunch of stories about Ron and how helpful he was, because I think back in the day, Bruce and Jamie went by the Bigfoot shop a lot and hung out with those guys and stuff like that, and they thought so highly of Ron. So I wish I could have met him back in the day. It just didn't work out, but I heard from so many people he was a wonderful man.
Brad?
I'm just trying to think if there's any more questions.
Good night.
I'm just trying to think. Any races or moments that have stood out to you that you've been able to be a part of?
Not so much, man. Like I was talking about just now, they're all special to me in one way or another. And so just any opportunity, especially from here on out, any opportunity you get to perform in front of the fans, it's going to be special, because I think we all kind of took it for granted, before all this happened. And then when all this came to a complete stop like it did, it really makes you sit back and think. It's like, wow, I've been blessed to be able to do this for as many years as I have been able to do it. There's no guarantee on how long the dream lasts. I'm still living the dream. October will be 9 years. I hope to keep it going. For Kendon's sake, if he wants to do it someday, or Aubrey's sake, she's a little daredevil too. So I'm going to just hang in there, me and Pops and the family, try to do the best we can out there and always keep it family oriented. And it's all about the fans at the end of the day.
Speak about the fans. One thing I'll probably like to ask is, when you first started getting fan mail, you got to be humble about it, but some of the stuff they can create just based off of your truck, it gotta be crazy, huh?
Oh yeah, and we've gotten some drawings over the years where they're so vivid. Like, they actually have Goodyear tires on the front and Firestone tires on the rear, and it's so cool that people actually pay that close of attention to our truck, and that just makes me melt, man, when they give me something like that, because I know how much time goes into something like that. And I'm sure if you've seen Cheech, we've actually got on the inside of our door there, we've got all the drawings and stuff that all of our fans draw for us. And every time we're at a pit party or anything, all those are on display for everybody to see, So any of you fans out there, you younger kids, if you ever want to draw us a picture, we'd love to see it. We'd love to hang it up on that door there, because that's a special place right there on that door, just for all of our fan mail and special things we get from the fans.
So, Brendan, is there any social media, any websites that fans can follow you guys on and get updates about the team and what you guys are doing?
Well, we've got a new page that we came out with last year. It's the Bad News Travels Fast Monster Truck Racing page on Facebook. If they'd like to follow us there. And we've actually got a website also, www.badnewsracing.com. If you guys want to go there, I mean, we've got merch. We've got all kinds of history on the truck there. And it's really cool. Actually, Christopher Warnick and his wife are doing the website for us now and doing a phenomenal job. I know Cheech knows him. And so it's all kinds of cool stuff on the website as well, and talks about when Bruce and Jamie own the truck. And so there's several ways to follow us on social media.
So one more thing. This is my last hoorah, and it's kind of cool to hear the story about this. So Andy brought it up, and I was asking anyway, but I'm going to let him go. And he said his favorite moment was the drag race in downtown Weirton, West Virginia, which is about 2 towns, really, you could throw a rock, of where I previously lived, where my parents live in Wellsburg, West Virginia. And how did that start, and what's the story behind the drag race?
Well, that was something that was kind of last minute to promote the event that we had there. It was at the Pennsylvania Motor Speedway, I believe is what it was called there, and close to Pittsburgh. And so we had a display there in Weirton. And it was just a really cool, it's kind of like a car show. And then they had us there, and it was a great turnout, really it was. And they were giving away all kinds of prizes and things like that. And somebody came up with the idea of, hey, Nathan's little junior dragsters here, Nathan Grill and his father Bob Grill, they were there too. And they had the little mini dragster that looks exactly like the big truck with the same graphics and everything on it. They're like, hey, let's just line these two up and drag race them and see what happens. Well, I thought, well, this is not going to happen. You know, how are we going to block the streets off and things like that? But the cops got together. They said, we're going to get on one end of the street, and the cops got on the other end of the street and actually blocked it off to where we could pull out onto the track, onto the road there and just drag race. And I got my butt handed to me by Nathan, for sure. He treed me and was gone. And so the only reason I caught up to him is he let out of the gas. But but it was so fun. It made my day. It made Nathan's day. And that's definitely something I'll never forget. That was a great time.
You know, and we love seeing stuff like that, you know, in the industry. And, you know, it just puts a smile on everybody's face that, you know, you can be able to do stuff like that. And, you know, we had you on, you know, in our very first episodes, and, you know, years later, here we are again. And we just want to thank you for coming on and, you know, updating us what's going on with the truck and the team and you. And it means a lot to us to have you back on after all this time.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot that you have me on here, so especially with all the other legends that you've been mentioning that you've had on this show. So it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And thank you for being, just hitting you up last week. But, you know, it's pretty cool to have you back on. And, yeah, like Brad said, the update and maybe help people out knowing what's going on with you and the Bad News Travels Fast truck and family. And you know, hopefully we'll see you down the road. And maybe I'll stop by Bowling Green. How about you, Brad?
Hey, I can't, man. My hands are tied. My hands are tied.
It's like 20 hours. Come on down, man.
Hey, if somebody can get me a ticket down, I'm there.
I got a military cot and a pillow. You could sleep somewhere in this general facility called a living room, and there we go. Get your visa or
passport. I gotta get a new passport
there for you working, so you don't get deported.
Question.
You're just one phone call away, Brad.
Here's a question for Andy. Can we get a ticket for this man?
Hey, I just got to get a passport first. I got to get a new passport. Then I'm down. Then I'm down, man. Hey, if anybody wants a crazy Canadian, I'm down, man. Just pay me in Mountain Dew Code Red. I'll be fine.
Hey, definitely, man. We can do that.
All right, everybody. Thank you once again, Brandon, for coming on. We also like to give a huge thank you to everybody that supports us. Joey Sylvester and High Octane Coffee over there in Canfield, Boardman, Ohio. Go check those guys out, what they're doing. We also got J Concepts, Jason Ruona, and Fred Reap, and they're restoring Bigfoot 4. We talked to Jason Chill just about that last week. Nick Davis and Back Channel Productions, awesome, doing some stuff for us. Does some stuff for Zane Ratu and everybody. We also got, I'm just reading as it scrolls along here just because there's a lot to remember. and ADHD brain. 6B Apparel, Chris Bozen, awesome crew shirts, some of the softest crew shirts that I've ever been able to wear. We also got Marty Garza in his book, Monster Truck Technology. Brandon, have you had a chance to read that book?
I have not, but I need to for sure. I remember when that book came out, and I thought, man, I need to get that book. So that's definitely on the to-do list.
And we'd also like to thank JB Scale Graphics, the only RC decal supplier of Bigfoot, Obsessed, Bad Habit, and Overkill Evolution.
Then he just became the graphics, the decal for Against the Grain, also.
Yep. And Against the Grain.
And also talk about next week. If you heard the news, we're gonna have the driver Rob Fuchs of the First Blood Monster Truck. He will be on next Tuesday, and then after the show, I will release the desk for next Thursday. It's gonna be one of our Where Are They Now episodes, and be a pretty good episode right now.
And I want to say this. We have some awesome, exciting news to share sometime soon with you guys. Cheech blew my mind earlier before we went live. And it's, dude, you guys aren't ready for this. You guys are not ready. This is a game changer, guys. You guys are not ready. I almost like jumped up out of my chair because of this. When we announced it, it's going to be a big. And Brandon even heard the announcement. Like he heard it. He knows. You guys are not ready for this.
Not ready.
Like this is going to be guys. Like you're not ready for this. Like it's iconic. This is going to be that's going to be an iconic week.
Yeah, it's two guests.
Two guests
revolutionized the monster truck industry, and one. I'm not gonna say it.
No,
you can't.
There's lots of people that...
You take that job and shove it. And that's
wow, Cheech. All right, guys. Again, thank you for coming to join us on Crush This Live. Check up on your friends and family. Make sure they're doing good mentally and physically. With COVID going on, there's a lot of uncertainty in this world. Go check up on everybody, please.
And make fans of the Redskins, go check on them too, because they just got.
And once hockey is on, please go check on your family, like Chicago Blackhawks, because they're going to get absolutely destroyed by the Edmonton Oilers.
I can see it now. I got comfort Brad because he's talking too much. Remember President Teddy Roosevelt? Speak softly and carry a big stick.
Edmonton's going to do that when they destroy Chicago. Ooh. And that's for Brendan Culpepper. You're going down, buddy. You're going down.
Hey, do a bet. If the Oilers win, that guy, Brandon has to eat something that you like that he doesn't like. But if the Oilers lose and the Blackhawks win, during the next episode after that series, that glass has to be clear with eggnog.
All right. Right now it's full of Mike's Hard Peach Fuzz, which this stuff.
Well, I think we need to talk to Brandon Culpepper and do this deal between the Blackhawks and the Oilers and make a deal about it because you're already talking beat. And
okay, it's on. It's settled right now.
Brandon, you hear that?
Brandon. If Edmonton loses, I will drink an entire glass. No, I'll do one better. I'll drink an entire carton of eggnog. I'll do one better. I'll do it. I swear to God, I'll do it.
Brandon, we need you on right now. Where are you at in chat? Are you watching this? You better be watching this. I'm blowing up your phone.
I am confident in my team of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McJesus, Leon Draisaitl, Mike Smith. I'm confident in that whole team. Zach Cassian's going to destroy anybody that comes against them. I'm confident in my team. All right, guys. On that note,
you're gonna crap your pants.
Hey, I'm passionate about my Oilers, man. I'm passionate about my team. But again, Brandon, thank you for coming on the show. Hopefully, definitely have you on again soon. And it's way too long, so
it has been. Sure.
Somewhat a serious, but the very funny moments. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. The phone beeped and I was gone. So I mean that was that was not planned, but my house is not burnt.
All right, guys. This has been another episode of Crush This Live. And as we always say here, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up. Peace.
Thank you, guys.